grade in your class?
I'm sure it's an A. I don't know.
It's
Can't imagine it not being.
Hello, everyone. You are here with Ponchatoula High School's Digital Humanities Club. We are a student-led group here at Ponchatoula High School that are looking to connect with and exhibit people of impact and unique character with stories and ideas for our school and community. We aim to delve into the intersection of education, history, and philosophy, the arts, math, and sciences. And we are excited to be here. My name is Destiny, and Coy is joining me for our guest here in front of the Trophy Case show here on campus. Today, our guest is a teacher here at Ponchatoula High School teaching curriculum in biology and engineering. Just recently, he was chosen as Teacher of the Year for 2022 to 23 for PHS and went to represent the school at district. There he was awarded District High School Teacher of the Year. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Dennis Pevey. How are you doing today, Mr. Pevey?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
That's great. So here in Ponchatoula, how long have you been here in Ponchatoula?
So this is my second year here teaching at Ponchatoula, but if we were going to add up time, then this is my 14th year here in the Tangipahoa Parish school system because I went to school through here as well.
How do you enjoy teaching at Ponchatoula so far?
I'm really enjoying it. I was really happy to come back to Ponchatoula High School and see what's changed in the 15 years since I left. Was really pleasantly surprised by the amount of talent and the hard work and the diversity of students that I get to work with here at Ponchatoula High.
So, to say you came back, you used to go to school here?
I did. I graduated here in 2006, and I went K-12 through Tangipahoa Parish school system.
And where did you go after being here for the first time?
So after high school, I went to Centenary College of Louisiana, that's in Shreveport, where I majored in music. I was a music major while there. I earned my degree in music education, but I realized that I don't think music is what I want to do. It's a hobby. It's a thing I enjoy, but teaching music is kind of a different situation. So I started teaching science and moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was for the last 14 years before moving back here just before the pandemic.
What made you want to teach science?
So teaching science is a lot like teaching music. It stays really active, and everybody's doing something, right? It's not a passive subject. It's not where you're taking notes and listening. There's always something happening and always something going on. And I thought that was really interesting. I just kind of naturally fell into the subject. I was teaching 7th and 8th grade science for a long time. And really enjoyed it. And when I moved back here, I thought, I want to do something different, though. I want to see how what it's like in the high school world and working with kids about to enter into college and the workforce.
Where did you go to college?
So I went to Centenary. It's a small liberal arts school in Shreveport, Louisiana. It's very, very small. So whereas here at Ponchatoula High, there's about 2,200 students, at Centenary, the whole campus when I was there was 865 students. So, you know everybody. Everybody knows you. It's very, very small classes. So I think my largest class I had was my general bio class, and that was about 30 people. Whereas at a large school like LSU or Southeastern or places like that, you might have a couple hundred students in a big lecture hall. So you get a really personalized education there. You get a lot of one-on-one interaction with your professors. You get a really good high-quality degree from that school.
So what made you choose that college?
I started at Southeastern. I did 2 semesters at Southeastern, and I was in the music program there. And while it was great, it's a fantastic program, and I think Southeastern is a fantastic choice for students, especially from this area. I really wanted a smaller and more intimate college experience. I had a few friends from here in Ponchatoula that went to school at Centenary, and when I was comparing their first year experience with my first year experience at a state school, it didn't really compare. The types of things they were doing, the trips and experiences that they were happening at Centenary just really didn't compare to the types of experiences I was having back here. So I transferred the following year.
Okay. Now that you're back at Ponchatoula High School, how well is your experience back?
It's been really great. I really like the team of teachers that I get to work with. I like that I have the flexibility to teach in my own style and do the sort of activities. I was really fortunate to have a lab space and equipment that I can work with. We can do, higher quality science than just sitting in a classroom. And that's not the case for a lot of teachers in science. A lot of high school science teachers have to really struggle to have the autonomy. That means the ability to kind of do what you want to do. To teach and to teach their subject, as well as to have the resources to teach science. And Ponchatoula allows me to do both, which is a really unique experience.
How do you make your teaching more personalized with your students?
So I think that it starts with realizing that not every student is going to be a biologist. I teach biology and engineering, by the way. That not every student is going to be a biologist. That the skills and focusing on the skills that we learn through science class, collaboration, teamwork, reading scientific literature, planning experiments, that those skills transcend just doing biology. And if you focus on the skills and you focus on helping students to develop those skills, then they can use that. They can use what they're learning in the biology class outside. They can use that in their career pathway, and they can use that in other majors. So, for example, a student that leaves my classroom and says, you know what, I think I'd rather be a attorney. I'd rather go into law. This science stuff isn't for me. Well, now when they have a court case with a testimony from a doctor or a testimony from a pathologist, that's the type of person that's going to be looking at samples and giving analysis, that they can have that conversation, that they can draw on the skill set they learned in biology but use it in their career path. By focusing on those skill sets and focus on developing cross-curricular type activities that students can use that biology even if they don't become a biologist, which I think is really important.
So since you explained all that information that you basically use to sort of teach your students which pathway they want to go to, how do you create a bond with your students?
So that happens through a lot of things. Now, it's kind of hard because there's so many kids here at PHS. So it's kind of hard when you have a class of 35 or 36 to make a personal relationship with each one. But we try. The biggest thing is through interacting during lab work. If it's just me standing at the front talking the whole time, every day, every class, then there's not much of a relationship that gets built. But if I'm working with you at your table and we're doing activities together and we're interacting as you're working and I'm coming in and giving feedback, that's where the foundation of a relationship is built. Also by creating a respectful environment, by realizing that we're all here to improve you and to make you a better person. We're all here to help you get to that graduation date. And if I create a culture of respect, well, that's where that relationship begins. A lot of my students that I have from 1 year, while they can't take biology with me again, there's other classes that I teach as well. They can take my intro to engineering class or my robotics class. So I can kind of get to maintain relationships with students over the course of their time here at PHS.
For the people that are watching the live, if y'all would like to ask some some questions to Mr. Pevey, drop them down in the comments, and we will ask them around the end of it.
Okay. How do you help your students that are struggling? Do you tell all your students about your experiences being a biologist?
Yeah, so students that are struggling, some students, biology's not their thing. They're not cut out to, it doesn't particularly pique their interest, and they struggle. One of the ways that I help with that is I try to teach study skills in addition to teaching the class. So rather than just saying, okay, you need to study, this is on you, right? It's for you to figure this out. We talk about the best way to study for a particular topic or a set of material. We'll talk about goal setting and reflecting on the information and seeing, okay, do I understand this? Do I not understand this? And then what steps do I need to take to get there? A lot of times students don't know what they don't know, and when we tell them to study, they don't know what that means. Okay, do I need to just pick up the book and look at it? Do I just need to click through my slides? What does that mean? What are the active things that I do while I'm trying to get ready for material? I try to make sure, even though time is really short and we've got, every minute counts, I try to make sure that I carve out time to really focus on what should be happening at home and how best to prepare for different types of material. That helps when moving into college. Okay, there's all these different resources. I have all these tools now of different ways to study material. Which one do I think will work best for this particular class?
So, what's your teaching style?
I consider my teaching style to be fairly active. It's very lab-based. So I think that we learn through experiences, right? So when we have an experience that we can go back to, that we can connect the information that we learn to that experience, that it tends to stay with us. If you think back to just past grades and past subjects and past teachers you've had, you probably don't remember that teacher standing at the front of the room, but you do remember projects that you did, or maybe you remember something that happened in the classroom, because experiences stick more than just facts and information. So I try to make sure that before we start any new information, that we have an experience that we can go back to. So right now, in my biology classes, we're learning about bacterial infections. We're learning about how bacteria affects the body and how bacteria can mutate to pick up different kinds of resistance. So rather than just talking about it, we're going to do that. We're going to take samples of bacteria. We're going to introduce mutations to those bacteria and see how they change by introducing those genetic changes. That experience, that seeing that happen and seeing science happen right in front of them on a petri dish, is something that's going to make a lasting memory, something that's going to help make that learning stick, instead of just something I learned and now it's gone as soon as I take the test.
How do you feel about being Teacher of the Year?
It's a big honor. I'm really excited to be representing Ponchatoula High. I have a lot invested in being here, and it's really nice to kind of see things make full circle, to see going through and being a student, then coming back and being a teacher, and now representing Ponchatoula High on the state level. That's really exciting, and have a good chance to do. There's certainly a lot of great teachers here at PHS. And so it makes it even more of an honor to be selected among that pool to represent them.
So since you said there's a lot of great teachers here, what separates a great teacher from a good teacher?
I think what makes a great teacher is one that invests the time and energy into culminating the types of experiences that make learning really happen. A good teacher is going to have lesson plans in place. A good teacher is going to have grades. But a great teacher is going to go beyond that and say, okay, how can I shape the culture of my classroom? How can I shape the experiences that my students are going to have to take their learning to the next level? You can see a great teacher in the form of the results that they get, right? The test scores that their students earn, how they perform on state assessments. But even classrooms that don't have a state assessment like the LEAP test or ACT to connect with them, you can see their students going on after their class and using the skills that they develop. That's what separates a good teacher from a great teacher as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. How do you manage the time that you're given?
Having something from the minute the bell rings until the minute from the minute the class starts to the minute the class ends, having something there and some experiences are really important. When students walk into my classroom, I'm on their time, and I consider it a contract to make sure that every minute spent with me is time spent learning what they need to learn and getting the skills that they need from the class. For me, I feel like not planning properly is a failure on my part to hold up my end of that bargain. While it's hard work and while there's very few down days in my class, the results, what happens is that we really achieve a whole lot in the class. And that's from making sure that we're not just talking the whole time, right? That it's not just me standing at the front, everybody taking notes. It's not just everybody kind of doing something on their Chromebook, that we're doing a variety of different things and that we're interacting with the material we have to learn in a lot of different ways.
What motivates you, even though if you have like bad days with your classes or if there's a certain class, what motivates you to keep it pushing?
For me, it is trying to top how I did in one year. I always want to try to do a little bit better each time. So, for example, last year my students did fantastic. I was really excited about the LEAP scores that we got last year. We had a 98% pass rate for the LEAP test out of my biology classes, and that's out of honors as well as regular, as well as some inclusion classes as well. That's a really high pass rate. So almost everybody passed the LEAP test last year. But this year I don't even want that 2% in there, right? This year I want 100% pass rate. We also had a couple students that after they took Biology 1, we did a little experiment. We wanted to see, okay, are they ready for college? Are they ready to go on to the next step? So we had a biology students take the CLEP test. The CLEP exam is a placement, a college level placement test. And I had a student that after taking Biology 1 took that CLEP test and now has earned college credit from what we did in last year's class. I want to keep building that number up. I want to see if, okay, can I get more? Can I have more students do that? And so that challenge, that goal of trying to make sure that every student is doing better than they did the previous year, that's what kind of keeps me going.
Okay. Awards other than being Teacher of the Year, do any stand out?
Yeah, so this is my 14th year teaching. The bulk of that time was in Arkansas. During my time in Arkansas, I entered into several national teaching awards and competitions. One of them is through a group NSTA is the National Science Teachers Association. NSTA and Shell Oil sponsor a competition for how teachers use limited resources to impact their students. I was the national winner for that competition in 2014, and that was a $30,000 grant awarded to my classroom to get materials to teach my kids and kind of do a lab remodel. The next year, I won a competition through Vernier Technology. That's a science probeware and equipment company. I also took the national award for that one. That was a $10,000 grant to buy probeware and sensor equipment for my students. My students have won the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition. They've made it to the national finals. They've done that 2 years in a row. I won my school district in Arkansas's Teacher of the Year competition and was in the running for, or was a finalist for Arkansas State Teacher of the Year as well. So I feel like I'm kind of collecting the different state Teacher of the Year rings. Let's see. I think that's it. And then other little smaller regional competitions. There's the United States Green Building Council. They do a yearly competition where schools and students will submit their project and their work for how they can improve the sustainability of their school program. My students won the Arkansas competition of that one as well from a project that we developed to look at stormwater runoff from our roof and testing that water for pollutants, and then creating a filtration system to monitor and remove those chemicals before it went into our groundwater system.
So I'm hearing all these awards and all these accomplishments in teaching. Was teaching always your things ever since you were little, or was there always something else that you wanted to do besides teaching?
Yeah, so I knew when I graduated high school, I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to teach. So music ed was the pathway that I chose. Mm-hmm. I thought, for me at PHS, it was a different place here. We didn't have as many dual enrollment options. We didn't have as many career-specific classes. There were some business classes, and there was, wood shop and things like that, but there weren't as many options as you guys have now. And so for me, I knew I wanted to teach, and I knew I was good at music, so I thought, perfect, those are the two things that go together. And then I realized I didn't want to do music forever, that, it's a lot of fundraising, it's a lot of just always advocating for why your job's important and why your job's relevant. And so I was looking, even before I graduated college, I was looking to see, okay, what subject do I want to teach? I want to stay in education, but which one do I want to do? I thought it might have been English, and I like English a lot. I love to read. I'm a pretty good writer, and I like teaching writing. But oh my God, the grading takes so long. Grading essays is just not as fun. So there was an opening for teaching science, and that's how I ended up in it. So even though I didn't see science as an engineering as my path, I always knew it was going to be education, and that's where I'm happy to be.
So you're also an engineering teacher?
I am. I sure am.
What impact do you think engineering has on society today?
So lots, right? That, a lot of, the topics like Deepwater Horizon and the collapse of the Hard Rock Cafe in New Orleans a few years ago. Those are engineering challenges, and those at some point come back to an engineer making a decision. I have a great group of students in my engineering class. I'm confident that all of them are going to make really, really strong engineers one day, but there's always the weight of realizing that I need to teach them not just the skill set, not just how to be an engineer, not just the topic, but rather how to think ethically and how to make ethical decisions, because the decisions that we make as an engineer, those decisions impact society, sometimes in really great ways, new technologies and new buildings and bridges and roads and all that stuff, but also in a potentially harmful way as well if those decisions aren't ethically sound if we're cutting corners, if we're making decisions for financial gain and maybe less for the safety of the people and the projects that we're working on.
You like teaching science, but what other than teaching have you been included in?
Yeah, so I, in 2015 through 2019, just before the pandemic, I've been involved with a group called Ocean Exploration Trust. This is a research organization, a marine research organization that was founded by Dr. Robert Ballard. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Robert Ballard was the man that discovered the Titanic. He has a research vessel called the EV Nautilus, Exploration Vessel Nautilus. And during my summers, during that time span, I would go out as soon as school ends. I would join the ship wherever it was around the world. So I was in the Gulf of Mexico for a few summers. I was off the coast of California for a couple summers and into the Pacific Northwest, into Canada. And during that time on the ship, I worked as what's called the Science Communication Specialist. So my job on the ship was to live stream shows similar to what we're doing now, but instead of us in an interaction like this, people that are watching the live stream of the ship's operations from home are sending in questions, and I'm fielding those questions to the ship scientists and engineers. While the ship is doing its research, it sends its robots down to the seafloor. Viewers at home from all around the world can watch what's happening on the ship. They can interact with the scientist. I would, help in that process and write lessons that would connect things that we're doing on the ship with things that students can be doing in their classroom. Hosting interactions, so different classroom groups can join us on the ship through a satellite feed. We'll set up a satellite connection between the ship and that classroom, and we'll do a one-on-one discussion between the class and that particular group. So that was a really cool thing. It was a time for me to, get out and do actual real science in the field and see how the things that I do in the classroom, how those connect with careers in marine science and all of the interesting applications of STEM and how those look out at sea.
Who have been some of your favorite teachers you've learned or worked with?
Oh my gosh, so many. Here at PHS, one of my very favorite teachers was Miss Kim Zabia. She was the art teacher before, maybe 2-3 teachers ago. It's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really liked, even though, while I really like art and I still I'm not actively doing art, on my own, what I liked was the way the class was set up. You would do a project, you'd work on a project, then we'd come together as a group and we'd do critique. We'd give feedback on each other through that project. And that piece, that thing really stuck with me. I said, this format, this way of running a classroom is really valuable, and it could be applied to a lot of different situations. So I always that's a takeaway, and has informed how I teach my classroom, or each of my classroom, and run my individual units, is trying to use that sort of format. I had, back in 3rd grade, Miss Nancy Bass was my 3rd grade teacher, and she would always make sure that whatever we were learning in the classroom, that it connected to something greater, that we would maybe, while instead of learning sentence structures and declarative sentences and how to use an exclamation point, that we'd look through plays and we'd read literature and we'd learn how a playwright would use those types of sentences, and we'd perform skits in the classroom and see how those different types of sentences, how we use those to emote. I mean, this is at a 3rd grade level, so this is younger, right? And that informed how I teach. That, okay, I can teach a piece of information, but if we're doing something active, it's going to stick. It's going to make that more relevant and more valuable. There's certainly a number of professors that I had in college and things that I did in college that informed the way I teach, but I try to take something away. Each teacher that I had, I try to say, what's the best thing that they do, and what can I grab from them, what can I learn from them, and apply into the way I run my classroom and the way I do things. Might be a totally different subject matter. It might be taking an art teacher's way of running the class and make that work for a science class. It might be the way a choir director runs a rehearsal and something I can use in my class, but there's always something to learn. So it's always good to pay attention because you never know how you'll use the things you learn in class.
Right.
Being a teacher here at Ponchatoula High School, what do you like being seen done?
Lots of things. So I really like the direction that we're heading with our CTE courses. I think that's where we aren't just realizing that every single kid's going to go to college, right? We're not trying to funnel every kid in that direction, that we're really trying to make sure that when kids graduate, sure, they've learned some content, sure, they performed on some state tests, but they're also leaving with certifications. They're leaving with college or career-ready skills. I think that's really important, and I like seeing that happening. I really like seeing the after-school program and where that will be heading. I think that's a great opportunity for kids to do some things outside of the classroom that you don't normally have time for during the regular instructional day. Let's see, what else? I think that our science program, our science department, is really elevating the experience. In the past, we had a lot of students that would go through and do physics, and they do really well in physics, and they would not necessarily take the upper level biologies and chemistries and biomed courses. And we're seeing now that more students are funneling into those upper level science classes, and that's a really exciting thing. That gives us as a science department some more challenging material to teach, and students that are willing to challenge themselves. That's a really cool energy, and I'm excited for where that can be heading.
So I heard there's a robotics club now at
Mhm.
PHS. Out of all the clubs, what made you choose to make a robotics club?
I didn't. That was something I was asked to do.
Oh.
Well,
I
no,
didn't know
but
that.
no. It was a need. It was an area that we didn't really have here.
Mhm.
We had, prior to me being here, we didn't really have an engineering program, and a lot of students were interested in programming and computer science, but didn't have an outlet for doing that. We had some certification courses where you can certify in, how to code in Python or how to code in C, but there was no application courses where you can actually use those things. So some students were asking, and then I was hearing it from teachers. They asked if I would be interested in doing something like that. So I said, sure, I'll be happy to. It seems weird, a biology teacher that's teaching a robotics class, but that background in music that I mentioned earlier, that music is a programming language. It's a series of symbols and letters and things that translate into actions that we take. It translates into something that I need to do to, move my fingers in a certain way, or change my articulation, the shape of my mouth, or the shape of my inner palate. That's what we do with computers as well with code. We give a series of symbols and messages, and we tell the computer that when I say this, these are the things that I want you to do. And so I draw on those things, yeah, that's how I kind of fell into doing robotics. I would dabble as a maker, so I would do some smaller consumer electronics projects and programming projects on my own. We keep the robotics club pretty open-ended at this point. We kind of see what the interest is of the crew and what the classes are, and I try to plan projects that they're interested in, and we go from there. We focus on developing the skill set rather than just kind of plugging in pieces together and saying, okay, we made a robot. We really focus on why it works and how it works and troubleshooting those problems.
Okay, so you said that you have done small programming projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so things that I've done in the past. It actually started in the science classroom from not having the resources that I needed to. I wanted to, with my science students in Arkansas, I really wanted a way for us to take temperature measurements and pH measurements of different samples, but that kind of equipment's really expensive to have and to be able to use. So I started Googling and I started finding, I was like, oh, here's a way that I could do this using something called an Arduino, a microcontroller. I can program an Arduino to collect that data, and then my kids can do it. So I started messing with that equipment and along the way learned some robotic skills. From there, I started saying, well, what can I do next? So I had my kids build a birdhouse. This was a thing. They built a birdhouse that had in it a sensor that would notify a person if there was a bird in the house or if there wasn't a bird in the house. I thought, okay, that's cool. What can we do next? And then, from there I would do, costumes and wearable technology and things like that. And just every year I'd pick up a few extra skills. And now I feel like I've got, a tool belt full of these know-how of how to work with these chips and work with these programs to do cool stuff. So
It's kind of a funny question. If you could take your students on a field trip anywhere in the world, where would you take them and why?
Anywhere at all.
Anywhere in the world.
Right now, I'd really like for my kids to go to the CDC. I think that would be a really cool trip.
Where's that at?
That's in Atlanta. So that's a chance to see the Centers for Disease Control. I think that seeing active science, so many of my kids are interested in going into biomed and careers in medicine. And then to see how the science and medicine and research, how all those things intersect together, I think that would be a really powerful trip and experience for them to get to go see. Goodness, I mean, if we could have a magic school bus situation and go like teleport all over and wherever, I think we'd always be traveling and going to see stuff.
Yes. You would be the male version of the magic school bus.
Do you find the more complex parts of biology, like the disease control, more interesting than just simple?
Yeah. So this area of biology that we're in right now, I really do like because it's so relevant. That maybe not. The way the cell is organized and different kinds of cells, okay, maybe that's not, particularly relevant to anybody, but everybody's going to get sick at some point. Everybody's going to have to take a medication at some point. Knowing how that medicine affects our bodies and how different pathogens and diseases, how those affect us and how we can treat them, that's something that everybody can use. And so I really like these topics that I'm in right now in biology because it's so real world. It's not something that only happens in the textbook, that these are all things that everybody has experienced and everybody has something that they connect with to it. So I like that a lot. I also like that the connection to careers and jobs in biomed are so right at the surface as opposed to really having to work hard to find those connections. It's a lot easier in the areas of biology that we're at right now.
Where do you see your career in 5 years?
In 5 years, I would. I really like being back in the classroom. I stepped out of the classroom for a while, doing curriculum development. So I would write curriculum and lessons, and I would do that and help support teachers to teach science. But I missed being in the classroom and interacting with kids. In 5 years, I hope that I'm still in the classroom and interacting with kids, but what I'd really like to do is be working in specialty courses. So maybe not biology 1, but marine biology. And maybe it's, seeing where my robotics classes go and work in, different kinds of specialty robotics. I'm hoping that in 5 years I've built my programs enough that I have enough student interest that we can take those classes and we can get those classes off the ground, and not just basic math, basic science, basic chemistry, that we can really take classes that are high interest and really have a direct connection to a job that they could get right after high school.
Have you considered teaching a higher level of education?
I have. I don't know if that's for me. The teaching college would be the next step, and I feel like that's pretty similar to what the role I had outside the classroom, working with teachers and training teachers and how to teach science. And while it was fun, and while I like working with adults, I think that the impact really happens in getting kids into the career pathways that really matter.
Do you think biology is supposed to be a fun subject or a hard subject where it's stressful and they don't understand none of the material or anything?
Well, I think that you can have both, right? You can have fun and you can enjoy what you're learning, but also be really challenged by it. I don't think that biology should be taught as a set of facts and things to be memorized and that's it. I think that all sciences need to be a mix of labs and experiences and activities. While the content is challenging, I think that we can have fun while we're doing it too. And so, always making sure that we're focusing on the skill and focusing on the activity. I think that that's what makes, even though it's tough, that's what makes it manageable.
So we have some questions in the comments for you.
Okay.
Sanaya Brumfeild said, did you already know how robotics worked, or are you learning along with this club?
It's always both. Always both. I have a baseline understanding of my programming languages that we work with. I'm pretty comfortable working in Python and C. Those are the two main programming languages that I work in. But every project has its own set of challenges and things to work in. And so being flexible and knowing where to go to learn those things, what resources to pull up, helps. I feel like I know enough to be dangerous and I know enough to guide us to where we need to. But part of the process of building something is learning or is troubleshooting the unknown and making things work when they don't work. And that's just not something you can prepare for. You have to kind of be able to think on your feet and work really quickly.
What do you feel at the end of the curriculum once you're done teaching all your students what you've had to teach them?
Okay, so confession, I rarely ever finish everything that I need to finish in a year. That's pretty hard to do. There's always things left undone and always things left to do. When it comes time to take the test, I know that I've done the best I can. And for me, my philosophy is, rather than just rushing through and getting through 100% of the material, if I only made it through 80% of it, I know that the 80% that I taught them, we learned it really well and that we're going to be able to perform on. And so even though we might not have finished every single thing and every single topic and every single thing that we need to before the LEAP test, I know that what we did cover, we covered it well and at a good level of detail. And so my kids generally perform pretty well because of that. There's always room, though. I wish I had 2 years to teach biology, but we don't. We have to get everything done in a year.
Okay. Do you see anything that could be improved at the school or even the district?
I think that we all are having some growing pains by the block schedule. That while it's awesome having more time in the classroom, it when you add up the number of minutes, it really is the same amount of time. It's not any different. And one of the things that's lost by not having class every day is the repetition. Part of what makes learning happen is not how much you can cram in an hour, but how we repeat that information and we recall it from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. I don't think we quite have that down yet. I don't think we quite have figured out that pacing yet. We can, but it takes students and teachers both kind of realizing that on those alternate days that we have to go back and review. We need to look at material again. I think also that, we as a big campus, we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot of things happening here, and there's a lot of stuff that pulls students out of class. And unfortunately, with this, double the amount of time, we lose out on a lot of material every time somebody's out of class. And so those are some areas that I think we can grow, we can improve as we move forward with block schedule next year and the following years, is trying to figure out how we can maximize our time in the classroom and minimize the amount of things that are pulling us out of the class.
We have a couple fun questions to wrap up
Sure.
the podcast. So number 1, are you a cat or dog person?
I'm a plant person, so I don't know if that works. I do have a cat. Not saying that I don't like dogs, but cats are a little bit easier, more my style, and I like my plants a lot, so I have a lot of those at home.
Right. Do you listen to music?
I do, yeah, I do.
Do you have a favorite song?
Oh goodness. Still, I'm a big Vampire Weekend fan. That's one of my favorite. And the Father the Bride album is one of my favorites to come out in recent years. That one's really good. I really like that a lot.
Okay.
I cannot understand what this says.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
Okay. Favorite book is the Wheel of Time series. I'm a big fantasy fan, and the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. That's my number 1 favorite.
Who's your personal hero?
I think let me think through that one a little bit. Personal hero for me would be so hard. You know what? I think it'd be Jane Goodall. The experience of leaving society and embedding yourself into your work. She embedded herself into, a society of gorillas. She and studied them. She's the only human in that group, and I think that's kind of how I live my life too, embedding myself into what I do and looking at how the parts of my work interact with each other, becoming a better scientist from that work, and then seeing how that work translates into our own society. I think that is something that I aspire to be.
Do you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah. What do you plan on doing at the school now? Like, if any projects that you just want to see happen, any improvement?
Yeah. So this year I want to see my engineering and robotics classes continue to grow. I'd like to see more collaboration between those groups and the rest of the science faculty, and I'm excited to see how those projects kind of get off the ground.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What is the most important quote or affirmation you could give us to remember in the future?
To not be scared to make mistakes, A lot of us we avoid taking something because we're worried we don't want to be seen messing up. And then it's through those mistakes and through those experiences that we grow. And doing things that challenge us. A lot of times we only do things that we know we're going to be good at, we know we're going to achieve at. I think that's a key takeaway that we can all improve on.
Well, I think those are all the questions. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Pevey. It has been a pleasure to have you today and to hear your thoughts and experiences. Let this be a reminder to all students to tell your counselor about Mr. Pevey's classes, especially his engineering class, if you're interested.
Our next guest will be Mr. Kyles, who is the principal of Hammond High, and that show is next Wednesday. This is the Digital Humanities Club, and we hope you've had a wonderful time. See you next time.